So a little earlier this week, Nintendo announced that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild will be getting some rather interesting DLC throughout the year. Now, regardless of your feelings towards the DLC, there is something we're all no doubt excited for, and that's the new original story content in DLC Pack 2. Currently, we barely know anything about Breath of the Wild's normal story content, so it might seem a little early to theorize about the DLC, but I have a proposition of sorts, something that I think is a very high probability, and that's what I'm here to talk about in this video. So what if this new story content is actually a different perspective of the events that take place in Breath of the Wild? I have two scenarios that I would like to present today, so let's start with the one that I think is the most interesting. As it stands, we know there is a 100-year gap between whatever happened to Hyrule in Breath of the Wild and when Link wakes up in the Chamber of Resurrection. So what if this extra story content is us seeing and playing through those events? The only problem with this scenario is that Link would be in the Chamber of Resurrection, so who would we as the player play as? Nintendo has really never let us play as anyone but Link in a mainstream Zelda game. Unless, of course, you count the times where you control other NPCs with the items or what have you. Now, a slight fix to this would just be to rewind time a little bit further. So instead of just seeing the events during the time Link is inside the Chamber of Resurrection, we can go back just before he gets placed in the chamber and see what exactly led up to that point. Still, equally as interesting in my opinion, and solves the problem of Link not being present. Plus, I'm sure many of us would like to know what exactly happened to our boy Link. It's pretty obvious you don't just end up in a place called the Chamber of Resurrection by accident. There was definitely some epic battle that took place prior, and it is implied that Link, well, let's just say he didn't do so hot this time around. I personally think it would be really interesting to play through those parts of the game, but at the same time, because I'm sure the events that led up to Breath of the Wild will be explained in the main story, Nintendo might not want to expand what they've already completed. Plus, the DLC says it will be a new original story, so even though I think this idea would be amazing, I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo has something else in store for us. And that brings me to my second thought. This one seems a little bit more likely to me, but it still runs into the same problem of not having Link as the main character. As we all know by now, Zelda plays a very large role in Breath of the Wild. Of course, the extent of that is still unknown because the game isn't out yet as of recording this. But it's pretty apparent that she isn't just playing the role of a damsel in distress this time around. In fact, quite the opposite. Assuming she isn't just following us for the entirety of the game, it seems like Zelda is up and about her own business, trying to do her part to save the Kingdom of Hyrule. So you can probably see where I'm going with this, but honestly, I think it would be really cool if the DLC let us play as Zelda and get her perspective as the events of Breath of the Wild unfold. Think about it, you could interact with some of the characters perhaps before Link shows up, cross paths with Link at some point, and maybe even have some different dialogue choices. The possibility is there. The only issue that I see again is this might not be considered a completely original story, so it might automatically be debunked on that point alone. It honestly depends on how strict or liberal Nintendo is with its wording on that bullet point. And while the ideas I express in this video are completely speculation and things that I would definitely be excited to play, if Nintendo were to give us more details and it turned out to be nothing like what I've described here, I would probably still be very satisfied with it. You have to wonder though, what could it be? We know the full game took anywhere from 4 to 6 years to develop, and they only finished work on it a few weeks ago. That means they have give or take roughly 10 months to work on this new story and dungeon, as well as the rest of the DLC. For a game as big as Breath of the Wild, that doesn't seem like a long time at all. Now, I do understand the DLC content will probably be on a much smaller scale, and a lot of the base work is already done, but if there's any new dialogue at all, that would have to be translated, localized, and recorded in the various different languages, which would also take a ton of time. Although I have to give Nintendo credit, they did make Majora's Mask in just about a year's worth of development time, which is in itself a complete game and original story, separate from Ocarina of Time, just using the same art assets. So if anyone can do it, I think Nintendo is a pretty safe bet. Anyways, as always, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Do you like either of my ideas? Would you even want to play as Zelda if you could? I'd love to know. Also, if you've got your own ideas as to what the DLC could be, then I'd love to hear them. As always though, if you enjoyed this video, a like rating would be greatly appreciated. If you want to see more of my videos, consider subscribing. But once again guys, my name is Matt, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.